right, so we're gonna give it a couple minutes until a couple other people hop on, as people are hopping on, why don't you just comment below where you're watching from. We are with the Girl Scouts of Central Maryland, but we're pretty sure that there's gonna be more people around the country logging in to watch and see what we've got going on. My name's Megan and this is Laura. We are from the program department and we are going to be doing the Brownie Home Scientist badge today. All right, so it looks like we have a couple people that have kind of popped on. For those of you that have the materials, you can go along and do all of the activities with us. We're doing it live through as if we were doing it with a group of girls. And if you don't have it, you can come along and watch this again later. But yeah, so this is our first ever live stream for the program department. So bear with us if, there's any sort of, hiccups or anything like that. But we're going to have a lot of fun here today. But yeah, looks like we have somebody from Girl Scouts of Nations Cap watching. All right, so it looks like we have a couple people. So why don't we go ahead? We're gonna go ahead and get started with our first activities. So the very first one that we're going to do, if you have the materials, we are going to be making rock candy. All right, so I have all my materials set up. So we can go ahead and show you. And we're gonna flip. All right, so, and we aren't working today at the offices, so we are doing this live from my kitchen, so welcome. So we have all of our materials right here to get started with our rock candy part. All right, so I'm gonna get the camera off to Laura. So very first thing that we're gonna start with this badge is I've already measured out just 1 cup of water, and what I'm gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and pour that into a small saucepan or pot. And we are going to go ahead and get that started to boil. All right. I know that 1 cup of water does not seem like a lot of water. It doesn't seem like it's going to make a lot, but trust me, it's going to be all right. So as our water is boiling, we are going to go ahead and get the rest of our stuff kind of set up for the rock candy. So what I'm going to be making mine is I'm going to be making it in just a mason jar. All right. And I'm going to be using a pencil. You can either use a popsicle stick, a pen, anything that you can kind of just sit across the top of your mason jar, and a piece of thread. So as we are preparing everything, if you haven't already gotten out, I have 4 cups of sugar. That's a lot of sugar. There's a full bowl of sugar right here, and it's nice and ready. So once that water is boiling, we will be set to go ahead and start making our rock candy. So to prepare things, what we're going to do is we're going to take our string, we're going to measure out our string so that it kind of will just hang inside of our cup. All right, we're going to hang it like that. And what I found the easiest to do is to tie it onto the pencil and then roll it until it is at the appropriate length. All right, so we're going to tie it in a knot. And it's okay if it's too long to start. I will show you, and I will show you some that I already have sitting that are starting. Maybe they've started to form crystals yet. I haven't checked in on them. I made those probably about an hour ago. So what I'm going to do is we're going to see. I made that far too long. We don't want our rock candy string to be kind of hanging. We want it to be just barely touching the bottom. So what I'm going to do to fix that is I'm going to wrap the string just around the pencil. All right, and then we're going to check it again, wrap it a couple more times. And then what we can do is with the end of the string that we have hanging on the other side, just tie it off so it's nice and sturdy and it won't come unraveled. And then we can cut off the extra string on the flip side. So as we're doing that, my pot of water is actually just about starting to boil, so we will go over to that in just a quick moment. But what we can also do is just cut off the extra string on that side so it's sitting there nice and ready for us once we're done with our step. So
alright, so we have people saying they can't hear.
You can't hear?
Yeah, so let me see.
Can you hear me now?
Live video.
Alright, so I'm gonna, as Laura's getting that working, I'm gonna go ahead and keep going. If what we're going to be doing is I have my pot of boiling water. We're going to keep it on the heat as we go through with this. I have a boiling safe spoon to start things with, and I'm going to slowly start to add in a little bit of sugar at a time. And as I do it, I'm going to make sure that I'm stirring so that it is dissolving as I go. So each little bit that I add, I'm making sure that it dissolves, and then I'm going to add some more once that bit dissolves. All right. So Laura, if you want to come in on the pot so you can kind of just show them what I'm doing. All right. So I'm making sure that it's going to start to dissolve as I add more and more sugar. And we're going to keep adding sugar until it cannot dissolve any more sugar. We're making a super saturated solution here. And just keep on going. All right. And as we're doing this, if you're doing this on your own, make sure that you're just very carefully watching at the bottom of the pot so that the sugar is kind of not getting clumpy at the bottom. But we are going to need almost, if not all, of the 4 cups of sugar that we have poured out. So for those of you that are maybe just logging on, we're doing a Brownie Home Scientist badge, and this is our very first step for our Brownie Home Scientist badge, and we are working on making rock candy. All right. And for those of you that might not be brownies, that's okay. I'm going to tell you that the 5 activities that we're going to be doing today are probably some of my favorite activities to do, and it's fun for no matter how old you are, whether you're a daisy all the way up to an ambassador or an adult who just likes to have fun with science. All right. I'm just going to keep on going. There's a lot of sugar in this, so when we're eating rock candy, in moderation, because it's a lot. So the more that we add, the slower that the water gets to dissolving the sugar, but it'll still keep dissolving the more and more that we go through. So. All right. And once we see that the sugar starts to kind of settle at the bottom, that's when we know that we cannot add any more. And as you can see, the pot is looking like it has more and more water. It's getting more full as we go through. And it'll start to kind of get a little cloudy, but it'll clear up again as it continues to heat and boil. Again, if you're just logging on now and you haven't let us know yet, we're curious to see where all we're watching from. We know that there's going to be Girl Scouts more than just from Central Maryland that are watching today, so we're curious to see where you're coming from. We're here in Baltimore right now getting this done, but I know that there's plenty of people all over the state of Maryland and as well as probably the country that have said that they're going to log on and watch and see. So, all right, we're getting close. Go ahead and add the rest of my sugar in and get the rest of that dissolved. And once we've added all the sugar, that's when we are going to go ahead and once it's dissolved and off of the heat, we're then going to add in our food coloring. Today, because it is St. Patrick's Day and we're Girl Scouts, we are going to be doing a lot of things that are green just because we're celebrating and Girl Scouts are green. So. Alright, so once you add the rest of your sugar in, if you notice that it's still not completely there yet, feel free to add some more sugar. It might take a little bit more, especially if you added a little bit more water, if you're doing this for maybe a double batch, if you're doing this with a couple of girls. You can go ahead and do that, but I'm going to get the rest of this. It's looking like it's just about ready. It's looking pretty dissolved. Some of it's starting to not dissolve in my pot, so that's how we know that we're just about ready for the next step. And we'll let that sit on the heat for just a little bit longer. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take it off the heat. Just move it over one. And we're going to add in our food coloring. You don't have to make yours green. You can make it whatever color that you'd like. So you'll add your food coloring in and stir that together. All right. It's a little hard to see because my pot is black, but once we get it going into our cup, we'll see the color green that it has turned. All right. So we're gonna let that cool for just a quick moment with our string that we're gonna be putting into our cup. What we're gonna do is I'm going to get out just a little bit more sugar. Just a little bit, we don't need a lot. And what I'm going to do, just to help the crystals start to form, I'm going to very quickly just kind of dip my string in that mixture so it gets a little wet. And then dip it in the dry sugar just so that there are already some sugar crystals hanging out on our string and ready to start forming. It'll help those crystals kind of jumpstart their formation. So what I'm going to do now, just because I'm kind of clumsy, I'm going to do this in my sink because I don't want to accidentally spill. And we're going to make sure that we're being very careful. This is hot, all right? So what I'm going to do, and if you have multiple girls doing this, this will fill more than one mason jar. I'm going to go ahead and add that mixture to my mason jar, all right? And it's going to be hot, so I'm going to pick it up from the top, all right? So we're going to see that nice green sugar mixture in here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my string in there. And as you can see, my string is having some troubles kind of hanging down in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab a knife or a spoon or something and just help that down to the bottom so that it's hanging in our mixture. And once we do that, we're going to then let this sit for some time now. I'm going to let mine sit overnight and see what it looks like. It might take a little bit longer, but we're slowly going to start to see sugar crystals forming on that string. You're going to want to keep it in a cool, dark place away from any harsh lights. So I'm going to go ahead right now and just add this to the other two that I made this morning. I'm not sure if they have any crystals going on it yet, but not quite yet. But it takes some time for sugar crystals to form, so just be patient. And if you find that it didn't quite work, that's okay. Probably means that there wasn't enough sugar in that sugar mixture, and you can always try it again with more sugar and less water. All right, so now that we did that, I'm gonna go ahead and clear out my sink because we're gonna need our sink next. All right, so we're going to next do the static electricity activity for our Brownie Home Scientist badge. So what I have is a balloon right here. All right, so if you have your balloon, I want you to go ahead and blow up your balloon and get it nice and ready. What we're going to do with the balloon is we're going to give us some crazy hair. If you don't have enough hair to make this work, or your hair is not giving you enough static, a woolly blanket or a sweater is something that you can use instead. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just rub the balloon on my hair, and we're going to see all of my hair go and stick to the balloon. All of this static, all the electrons are being activated, and this balloon is getting charged with static electricity. I could do something like let it just hang out on the wall. All right, there's a lot of other things that we can do, but what we're going to try and do with this is we're going to try and bend water. All right, so what I'm going to be able to do is if Laura wants to get a little bit closer, we're going to see as I turn on my sink, just a little bit for right now, we're going to see that my water is just going straight down. Get that going. Once I come up with the balloon charged, we're going to be able to see that I need a little bit less water. We're going to be able to see that my balloon is able to move the water. Something really fun. It's kind of like a fun magic trick, but I'm going to tell you most magic tricks are actually science. But what's happening is that the water is attracted to the electrons at the balloon and it's trying to pull it closer to it, and it'll even touch it. And you can kind of make the water move. You can see if I go and put on my sink at full blast, the water's going to be moving too quickly for it to really move as much. You'll see it moving a little bit, but it works. You can see it move a lot more. More just kind of wiggles with it on full blast, but you can move it a lot more with just a little bit of water running out of that sink. Another thing that you all can do at home is if you have an empty soda can and you have like a brother or sister or somebody at home, you can each get a balloon and a soda can and charge your hair and then roll the soda can kind of just around, maybe through an obstacle course, to see who can get their soda can to move without actually touching their soda can by just using static electricity. Alright, so our next activity is going to be a lot of fun. It's probably one of the more involved ones that we're going to do. So I'm going to have, we're going to do it in two different ways. So this is going to be our density tower that we're going to be creating. And I'm going to be making my density tower in a graduated cylinder. I'm going to guess that most people don't keep a graduated cylinder at their home. So we're going to have, I'm going to do it in a graduated cylinder. Laura's just going to do it in a tall, clear glass. A glass like this will work. If you have a tall, very skinny vase, that might work. But something along the lines of this is what we're going to do. So I'm going to have Laura get the camera set up, kind of just so we can show you. I think we're going to do it just like this. All right. All right. So as we're doing this, I definitely want to see if you're doing this with your girls as we do it. Send us some pictures so that we can see your girls having a good time. All right, so what we're going to be making is we're going to be making a density tube. So we're going to see we have a couple different liquids that are stacked and layered on top of each other in this density tube. So our very first thing that we're going to start with, and what's the most dense or the heaviest kind of, is corn syrup. You can also use just maple syrup or some other type of syrup that you have. But what I'm going to do is just straight from the syrup bottle, I'm going to pour some syrup into my tube. I'm going to have Laura go ahead and try that with her glass. If you're using a wider glass, you'll probably end up needing a little bit more of some of these ingredients than I will, because I have a much smaller container that I'm doing things in. All right, so after this, we're going to take milk, all right? As we pour the different liquids, we're gonna have to be very careful not to just completely dump our cup into our containers. So I have a glass of milk right here, and Laura has one right there, and we're going to very carefully, I use Dixie cups because I can easily kind of bend the top of the cup into a spout. Makes it really easy for us to pour, especially with smaller hands. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to very carefully kind of pour down the side of the glass. So as I start to pour down the side of the glass, we're going to see the milk form a layer right on top of that corn syrup. So we can see, I'll kind of pull it in a little bit closer. We can see the two layers that have formed. All right. So next what we're going to do is dish soap. Alright, so I have a thing of dish soap right here. I'm going to give Laura one as well to use. Alright, so we can see how Laura's is working just as well. It's forming to the shape of the glass that we're using. So you can do this with anything that you might have at home. Alright, so the soap can be a little tricky. I'm going to show you on mine right here. Might be a little hard to see, but the soap, sometimes if you do it a little bit too forcefully, the soap might kind of come down to the layer below the milk. But if you're very careful, we're going to get the milk right below the soap and the soap to sit right on top. So this one, just like we did before, we're going to carefully dribble it down the side slowly. We don't want to pour too much in. As we do these layers, I chose different colors so that we can see our different layers. So if your soap is orange, you might want to change the color of the next layer after this to be something else. It'll be a little bit harder with the soap on Laura's just because it's a wider surface for the liquid to sit on top of. But as we come in closer, we can see that soap make that nice layer on top of the milk. All right. There we go. Perfect. So as Laura's finishing up with her soap right there, I am going to do our next layer, which is water. And with water, obviously we do know that soap and water mix together, but I'm gonna fill that with a little bit of water from the sink. So soap and water will mix together, but if we're very careful, we'll get that soap sitting with a layer right on top. I chose the color red for my water so that we can see the difference between the red and the blue. Alright, and I'm going to, again, very carefully, if we pour this one and we dump it, it will mix with the soap and kind of start to make soap bubbles. This is one where we need to be probably the most delicate with our pouring. So we're going to very carefully pour it down. It'll take a little bit longer for us to start to see it. Some of it might, as you saw, mine kind of came down through. You can see that if I poured too quickly, we see that it kind of goes down into the soap. Keep pouring and kind of let that go. Alright. So I see some of you asking about a diagram. I can definitely upload some of the pictures of the final products after this workshop so that you all can go back and refer to the different images that we have with what we're working with right here. So I'm going to get in with Laura. She's adding her soap in. Or it's not her soap, her water. It is mixing with the soap a little bit, and we can actually see, and this is okay. The number one thing about science is that sometimes things don't work exactly the way we want it to, and that is okay. We can see that when she's done pouring, we can see that some of that water came down and mixed a little bit with the milk at the bottom. You can kind of see it's kind of looking like strawberry milk in there, but that's okay because we still have our layers and we're still kind of seeing what's happening. All right, let's set this back up. Our next layer that we're going to be doing is going to be vegetable oil. So many of you know that oil and water do not like to mix together. So what we're going to do is oil will always float up to the top of water. Give Laura this one right here. And I already have mine ready. So we're going to go ahead and add our oil right on top. We're going to see that it's very easy. This we don't have to be as gentle with because that oil is always going to come right back up to the top. Unlike water and soap, they will mix together. Oil and water are never ever going to come and mix together. Another thing that will never mix with vegetable oil is rubbing alcohol. So what we're going to do for our last layer is we're going to do rubbing alcohol. I'm going to go ahead and make ours green just so that we can have a variety of different colors. I'm going to get Laura hers. And I have mine already poured and ready, but unlike water, water is more dense than rubbing alcohol, and it's also more dense than vegetable oil. Our rubbing alcohol is the least dense of all of the materials that we are using for this project, and what we can do is we can pour that right on in, and it will sit right on top of that oil. As you saw when it kind of goes down, even if it kind of creates a little divot in the oil, it will come right back up to the top and always float on top of the oil. There we go. If you pour it a little bit too heavy, it might go down and mix with the water. The rubbing alcohol and the water will mix together, but as long as you don't pour it so that it kind of hits at the bottom. I'll add the rest of mine to Laura's. You can see that we have all of our layers with our tubes. You can see that Laura's looks a little different than mine. Sometimes the shape of the glass will change how things pour on the side of your glass. So if your glass is kind of ridged or kind of at a different kind of angle than a straight up graduated cylinder, it might be a little bit more difficult, but it will still work. We can definitely see those layers. All right. So the next activity that we're going to do is we are going to be doing an activity with baking soda and vinegar. So we're gonna go ahead and pop over here while I get that set. All right, so we're gonna do this activity 2 different ways in case you don't have all of these materials at home, but we're going to both be doing something where we're going to be making something blow up or bubble with our baking soda and our vinegar. So what I'm going to do with my project, I'm going to be using a water bottle and a balloon. If you don't have a water bottle or a balloon at home, you can do this activity with just a Ziploc bag. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and get both of these set up to start. So I'm gonna take my vinegar and we're gonna pour it in. There we go. About 3/4 to halfway full of our water bottle. Before you fill up the back, because that's going to get a little messy, what we're going to do next is you're going to probably need a buddy or a parent to help you out with this. You're going to kind of open up your balloon, and a friend's going to take a spoon and scoop 2 or 3 big scoopfuls of baking soda into your balloon. It's okay if you make a mess. You're going to kind of scoop it in. We're going to see how we're kind of just filling up our balloon right here with some baking soda. All right. Do 1 more scoop. All right. So now that that's full, what we're going to do is, we're not going to make anything react yet, but what I'm going to do is we're going to make sure we have a nice, tight, secure connection. And we're going to take the top of the balloon without dumping anything into our water bottle. Just let it sit on top. So while that sits on top, we're going to go ahead and get Laura's together. All right, and what we're going to do is we're going to pour some vinegar into her bag. All right, so we have some vinegar in her bag. And Laura's going to have to be ready to zip hers closed very quick. So what we're going to do is we're going to add the baking soda directly to her bag. We're going to do 2 big things. I want you to close that really quick. And as she does that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add my baking soda to my water bottle. And we're going to see that it immediately fills up our balloon. My balloon is actually even filling up with some of the liquid. Laura's bag is exploding. We're going to hold that bag over top of the sink in case it explodes. That's a good one to do outside. But, whoo, we're going to see this balloon fill up faster and faster and faster. All right, there we go. Mine's kind of started to hold off, but we went ahead and filled up that balloon just using baking soda and vinegar. All right. So what we can do with mine, Laura's is getting very full, so is my balloon. I can even, if I'd like, pull it off and tie it off just like I would if I filled it up with my breath. And Laura's is nice and full and probably won't explode. If we did a lot in there, Laura's might have exploded, but typically it won't, but it'll usually just open right at the top. So we have that going on right there. And then, if you wanted to use this, you can use this as a second balloon to do for your static electricity activities. So that's not cool. All right, so our last activity that we're going to be doing today is a very messy one, but one of my favorites. So what we have right here is, let me rinse out this cup. We have a bowl of cornstarch and just a cup of water. And we are going to be making what I call Oobleck. Let me grab my green food dye because it is still St. Patrick's Day. We're making everything green. So what you're going to do once you have your cornstarch and your water, you're going to add some food coloring to your water. Go ahead and mix it together. All right. And then what you're going to do is we're going to slowly start adding it to our cornstarch. So as we mix it, we're going to stir that together, and it's going to clump up very quickly. All right, so see how that got very clumpy very quick. We're going to keep adding our water. You might need to get some more, and that's all right. We're going to keep adding and mixing this together. And if you're doing this with me, you're going to see that it's going to get hard to mix as we go through. It's going to get really, really tricky to mix. If you add too much water, it's really easy. You can always go back in and add more cornstarch. All right, which I might need to go ahead and do. So we can see that mine is very, very, very liquidy. When I stick my finger in and my hands in, we're gonna get messy with this one. It's not really, it's still very, very liquidy. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna go ahead and I'm going to grab some more cornstarch. Add a little bit more in. This activity is great because you don't have to be perfect with your measurements. You're just kind of mixing it together until it starts to become what we call Oobleck. And if you've ever read the Dr. Seuss book, it's a great book. So that's why I get this name. I'm going to start mixing it with my hands. And we're going to see that I'm able to pick it up. And I'm going to make a ball with it. All right? So can you guys see that I have now made a ball with this? Once I stop moving it in my hands, it's gonna melt and kind of become liquid again. So Oobleck is something really cool. It's called a non-Newtonian fluid. And what it is, it's something that has both qualities of a liquid and a solid. So you can go ahead and kind of push your hands down in it and kind of hit the top of it, and it kind of feels like just a table. But if I'm very slowly just sitting something in it, it's going to absorb around or fill around my hands like it would a liquid. So I can pick it up and I can hold it and I can make something with it. If I'm very quick, I can make something. But if I stop moving it, it will then act as a liquid. But this is one of my favorite things to do. It's really messy, so make sure that you are doing this as I am in my kitchen with all of these activities. The only thing, do not put Oobleck down your sink. It will clog your sink. So once you're done with your Oobleck, go ahead, put it in a bag or something like that and throw it out in the trash. But I want to say thank you all for tuning in today to do our Brownie Home Scientist Badge. Keep an eye out tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Laura is going to be doing a DIY badge workshop where the seniors can do their room makeover badge. But it's also just like the Brownie Home Scientist. There are going to be activities for all age groups, so no matter what level Girl Scout you are, you're going to be able to have some fun activities to do. And be on the lookout for next week. We're going to be doing more things. If you have anything that you might want to see us do, put it in the comments and we'll see if we can do it. But thanks.